There are so many ways to talk about climate change that we're scarcely hearing, because environmentalists like me are not saying them, and they're not going to sound like the normal ways we talk about climate change. People of the left say that they're very concerned. There's a lot of talk at the moment, there's a lot in the left-wing media, but conservatives are strangely quiet, almost silent. They're not talking with each other. Many of them in polls are saying that they're uncertain about it. Why are conservatives so quiet about an issue that more than any other threatens the very things that they most care about? The property that they've worked all of their lives for, the freedoms that are an essential part of government, their family and their future opportunities for their children, the very landscape, the things that are most important to their sense of cultural identity. Does it matter? Well, absolutely it matters. Because whether you're a conservative yourself, whether you're radical left, whether you're an environmental activist, it all comes down to the same thing. If we're going to deal with this huge overarching threat of climate change, we have to find a way of coming together, of finding a shared sense of purpose. And that means we've got to find a way of motivating this absolutely critical and core constituency. The big question is, of course, how are we going to do it? There are tens of millions of conservative people in this country who are deeply concerned that we are changing the world's climate. There are many conservatives who already accept this, because in the end, what forms people's views and judgment is not so much the scientific evidence, it's the evidence of the people around them, the people they know, the people they trust, and above all, the people who share their values. The problem we have with climate change is that so many of the messages that we hear are coming from one set of political values, from values of the left. And what conservatives desperately need to do is to hear narratives and language which speak to their concerns, not mine, but theirs. For example, let's face it, if anybody is going to sort out this problem, it's going to be conservatives like us. We're the backbone of this country. Climate change will only be dealt with through discipline, hard work, intelligence and organisation, and that is why we need to be involved. Extreme weather could devastate our most cherished landscape with flooding, with fires, with drought. We're living beyond our means. This is like a debt. This is like a burden that cannot be paid off, that we keep passing on to future generations, our very own children. It will bring increased asthma, heat stroke, allergies, all of the things which are going to affect the most vulnerable people, the oldest and the youngest. We've lost our sense of direction. Climate change can help us to find a new collective purpose, a new discipline, a chance to all come together with a combined purpose and rebuild the country. But if this way of talking feels unnatural to you, don't force it. The important thing is that you are trusted as a communicator, and trust in the end comes not from pretending to be somebody else, but from speaking from your own heart and your own sincerity. So be careful to avoid the values that are specifically not conservative. All that eco stuff, the polar bears. Speak to the things which you have in common with them, the shared values, the shared concerns about the future, and give a strong ownership to your own sense of personal concern. Communicate that, because in the end, that is what shifts people, the sense that others around them, who they know and who they trust, are concerned. And here's 3 things that you can do now. First of all, break that climate silence. Whether you're a conservative yourself, whether you know conservatives, reach across those boundaries and start that conversation, especially if there is an election going on. Elections are one of the rare times that politicians actually have any interest in what we might have to say, and they set the agenda and the policy for what follows. So talking about climate change during elections is essential, and it must be heard from conservatives as well as from the left. Secondly, find out more. Become an expert in the values of conservatives and how better to speak to them about climate change. Download our guide, which is below, with the best research on how to do this. Thirdly, share this video. Start that conversation happening everywhere that you can, because in the end, if we're going to deal with climate change, this issue, we have to find a way of all coming together and taking collective action and having a shared concern. And that can only happen when we are all fully on board.